Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the North Middlesex May 7th council meeting. Call the meeting to order. Roll call, everyone's present. Disclosure of pecuniary interest. I do have one from Councillor Nerda. Notice of public meeting to consider application MV 2-2025 located at 237 to 241 Park Hill Main Street, 2436069 Ontario Limited. And it's due to the fact that she's tenant of the applicant. Minutes of the previous meeting from April 23rd. Any business arising, errors or omission? Seeing none. Motion to carry. Councillor Irwin, Councillor Daigle, all in favor? Carried. We need a motion to go into committee of adjustment. Deputy Mayor Hodgins, Councillor Nerda, all in favor? Carried. Our first item of business is notice of public meeting to consider application MV 2-2025 located at 237 to 241 Park Hill Main Street, 2436069 Ontario Limited. And Ashley.
Thank you, Chair Rob. So originally this application was going to come before the committee this evening for a decision. However, as of yesterday, the owner's planning consultant reached out to advise that they would like to re-review the request just to ensure that the necessary relief that they are asking for is as accurate as possible. I would just note that when you are working with a site of this size, even the smallest discrepancy in the lot area can drastically change calculations. So as such, at the request of the owner and their agent, my recommendation is that this application be deferred until the resubmission is made, and then we will host the second public meeting at a future date and bring the recommendation based on that revised submission. So I would just note that we will recirculate to agencies and members of the public once that relief amount is confirmed, and we will let them know of the future public meeting date when it's set.
All right. Questions? No questions for Ashley? All right, we have a recommendation in front of us. Moved by Councillor Daigle, seconded by Councillor Irwin. All in favor? Carried. That is carried. Thank you. Our next item is notice of public meeting to consider application B7-2025 located at 234 Elm Street. And I believe that we have the applicant is coming on Zoom. Is that right? We're still waiting for the applicant, correct? Oh, we got him?
Hi there.
Okay, perfect. You can hear us all right?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, Ashley, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Rob. So the subject lands have an address of 234 Ellen Street, and they are located in the urban settlement area of Park Hill. The lot is classified as a through lot as it has frontage on both Alness Street and Ellen Street, and surrounding uses are predominantly agricultural or residential in nature, sorry. There is currently one 2-story single detached dwelling on the property, and there is an existing access to Ellen Street for this dwelling. The intent of the severance is for the owner, who has lived in Park Hill for nearly 40 years, to age in place by severing off the existing dwelling and building a new, smaller, accessible bungalow on the newly created vacant lot. Each lot will maintain their existing frontage of approximately 53 feet, and each lot will be approximately 404.69 square meters in size, which is slightly below the required 460 square meters. The policies are outlined in greater detail in my report, but I would summarize them by saying that the lands are designated and zoned residentially, and they're located in a fully serviced urban settlement area. This means that the provincial planning statement, the Middlesex County official plan, and the North Middlesex official plan all support intensification in residential areas subject to servicing and compatibility. The provincial mandate is clear in Ontario that we will increase the supply and mix of housing options, addressing the full range of housing affordability needs and providing a sufficient supply with the necessary mix of housing options to support a diverse and growing workforce and population. I would also just note that overhousing in Ontario is a contributing factor to the housing crisis. Overhousing is where a household is living in a dwelling that is larger than what is needed for their household size. Reports I have read note that the vast majority of seniors in Canada prefer to age in place. However, figures demonstrate that a large proportion of these seniors in Canada are overhoused. This means that a proportion of the housing supply is inaccessible to younger generations who may require additional space for their growing families. So I would note that this proposal presents the opportunity to address an instance of overhousing in Park Hill. As I noted in my report, no change of use is required to facilitate the severance, but a minor variance will be brought back before the committee at a future date for the lot area and potentially for a front and rear yard setback reduction. The application was circulated to the required agencies and property owners within 60 meters of the subject lands and was also posted on site in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act. The Asabo Bayfield Conservation Authority, Canada Post, the Middlesex County Engineer, Integris, and Thames Valley District School Board noted no comments or concerns with the proposal. And then standard comments were provided by the County Emergency Services Department as it pertains to 911 addressing, the Building Department and Infrastructure and Operations Department as it pertains to grading, drainage, and municipal servicing, and the Drainage Superintendent as it pertains to a required drainage reassessment. So no formal comments were submitted by members of the public prior to the submission of my report. I would just note that the neighboring property owner at 232 Ellen Street did reach out just to confirm they would not be responsible for any servicing costs for the new vacant lot. And I did confirm that all costs are solely the responsibility of the owner who needs the services connected and not the neighboring landowners. As I noted in my report, standard conditions for residential infill in Park Hill are applicable. A minor variance for the reduced lot area and potentially the front and rear yard setbacks will come back at a later date. And I am of the opinion that the proposed consent is appropriate, is consistent with the provincial planning statement, conforms to the Middlesex County official plan and North Middlesex official plan, and in recommending approval with the conditions outlined in my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley. To the applicant, do you have anything you'd like to add at this time?
If I could, Chair, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
All right, thank you very much. Yep, I just wanted to thank staff, Ashley in particular, for her responsiveness to date. She's been really great to work with, very responsive. I'll note also your online application process, very top-notch. I won't go too much detail here, but yeah, my mother is almost 74 years old and can't use the second floor of her home. The second floor is entirely emptied out. And, you know, she recognizes, it's in my comments here, and Ashley picked up on it, that she's overhoused. And, you know, the fact that the second floor is entirely empty, I think is evidence of that. She has converted a room on the main floor for her bedroom and has a washroom on the main floor as well. She's lived in Park Hill for almost 40 years. She really wants to stay in Park Hill. She has friends down the street, and you know, the nature of her lot provide an opportunity for context-sensitive infill, which, as Ashley noted, both the county and the local official plan contemplate and even more directly support. There's similar sized lots in the area, and full services are available. So with that, I appreciate the staff report, and I concur with the analysis that staff did. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for those comments. They're very nice of you to say. We have no public here. So is there any committee, any questions from the committee? Councilor Connellison?
Thank you, Mayor Rob. My question is for our Director of Infrastructure. Sam, in these conditions, there's a number of conditions where there's a cost associated with the condition. So my question for you is, who would be responsible to pay those costs? Is it the owner of the lot or when the person builds on the lot?
Through your worship to the councillor, it's certainly subjective to the condition, but anything to do generally with the actual construction of itself is typically borne by whoever owns the lot. So if they were to sell the lot as unserviced, then the cost would be borne on whoever buys it. If they choose to sell the lot as serviced, then they would have to incur the cost themselves.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Seeing none, we have a recommendation in front of us. To grant that. Councilor Nerda and Councilor Daigle, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Our next item is notice of public meeting to consider application B8 2025 located at 30597 Hungry Hollow. And do we have the applicant online? We have no one? Okay. Okay, Ashley, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Up. So the subject application is for a lot line adjustment between 30597 Hungry Hollow Road and 30607 Hungry Hollow Road. The portion of land to be merged has approximately 12 meters of frontage on Hungry Hollow Road and is approximately 0.14 acres in size. As you would see on the map there, the significant woodlands is in the green hatching and the regulated area by the Conservation Authority is red hatching. And so this portion of land entirely avoids those areas. The applicant has indicated that the intent of the lot line adjustment is to provide their lands with sufficient rear yard access. The applicant currently has limited rear yard access due to the location of the existing southerly lot line and the location of their existing dwelling. The applicant also notes that there is a steep slope just between the northern portion of the road allowance and their subject lands, making it difficult for them to gain access from that point. Additionally, we wouldn't necessarily want a second driveway going in that location. If they did want to construct a future accessory structure in that location, that would mean they either have to branch their driveway off over their septic system and cut down mature trees, and take away from the streetscape essentially, because it would be running directly in front of their house, or put a second driveway in a hilly area of the road, which neither are desirable in this specific case. So no change of use or zoning relief is required to accommodate this adjustment. And I will note that the application was circulated to the required agencies and property owners within 60 meters of the subject lands and was posted on site in accordance with the requirements of the Planning Act. No concerns have been raised by any agencies that were circulated, which includes the Asable Bayfield Conservation Authority, Canada Post, Emergency Services, the County Engineer, Integris, North Middlesex departments, including Building and Infrastructure and Operations, and the Thames Valley District School Board. So I would note that the policies are outlined in greater detail in my report, but I will summarize them just by saying that a lot line adjustment, they are permitted for legal or technical reasons, so long as they are either administrative or minor in nature. And I am satisfied that this criteria is met, as this adjustment's not creating a new lot, it's not introducing a new land use. It's just improving the functionality of the existing property while facilitating a safer and more practical rear yard access. I also do note that I like the intent of preserving the existing mature trees on the property. So standard conditions are recommended, such as legal confirmation that the parcel is being merged with the abutting property and that a new lot's not being created, that all accounts are in good standing, that we receive a preliminary survey by an Ontario land surveyor for review and approval prior to it being deposited at the land registry office, and that this will include the service locations just to ensure that they're not located in that added parcel, as has been described by the applicant. So I am of the opinion that the proposed application is appropriate and minor in nature and is consistent with the applicable policies. So I am recommending approval with the conditions in my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley. With no public present, questions from the committee? Seeing no questions, we have a recommendation to grant this application. Moved by Councillor Cornelison, seconded by Councillor Keogh. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. At this time, I'm looking for adjournment of this meeting and committee of adjustment and go back to reconvene for regular. Councillor Keogh, Deputy Mayor Hodgins, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Delegations, we have none. Department reports, and our first one is drainage, and that's Joanne.
Mayor and members of council, the Scapers Drain, staff received a petition for drainage works under Section 4 of the Drainage Act. The landowner is requesting to extend the drain from McDonald Drive to Sylvan Road, and this petition is an addition to a previous drain major improvement request. Ardobin Engineering Incorporated was previously appointed to this project. So the proposed motion and staff recommendation is that council receives the report DIO 28/2025 regarding the petition for drainage works by owners according to Section 4 of the Drainage Act for information, and that council receive the petition for drainage works by owners on the Scapers Drain according to Section 4 of the Drainage Act.
Questions from council? No questions? We have a recommendation in front of us. Moved by Deputy Mayor Hodgins, seconded by Councillor Daigle. All in favor? Carried. And your next one?
Mayor and members of council, staff has received 3 requests for drain major improvement on the Robinson drains in former McGillivray. The landowners feel that this drain is undersized. They wish to increase the tile to today's drainage coefficient. The proposed motion and staff recommendation is that council receives report DIO 29/2025 regarding the notice of request for drain major improvement for the Robinson drains according to Section 78, 1.1 of the Drainage Act for information, and that council receive the notice of request for drain major improvement Robinson drains according to section 78, 1.1 of the Drainage Act, and that council appoints Ardobin Engineering Incorporated as engineer to the project.
Questions from council on this application? Seeing none, we have a recommendation. Moved by Councillor Keough, seconded by Councillor Nerda. All in favor? Carried. And you have one more.
Mayor and members of council, a landowner has requested a tile drain loan to assist with his cost of tiling his land. Funding is available from the province through OMAFRA. The program is regulated by the Tile Drainage Act, and the municipality is prescribed to act as a collection and remittance body for this program. There is no additional cost to the municipality for this flow-through service. The municipality accepts the applications for funds up to 50,000, which is approved and borrowed by OMAFRA for a 10-year term at the rate of 6%. The municipality collects the loan repayments and the owners and then remits to OMAFRA. The drainage works and proposed start date is after wheat is harvested. The proposed motion and staff recommendation is that council receives the report DIO 30/2025 regarding the application for tile loan on concession 19 lot 16 of former East Williams, and that council accepts the application for tile loan, and that council appoints Joanne Sadler, drainage superintendent, as the drainage inspector.
Questions from council? Any questions on this? Seeing none, moved by Councillor Keough, seconded by Deputy Mayor Hodgins. All in favor? Carried. Thanks, Joanne. Our next item is a report from Director of Infrastructure, and that's the Mount Carmel Reserve upgrades.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To the mayor and members of council, before you this evening is report DIO 26 of 2025 that presents a scope change for the Mount Carmel Reservoir Upgrade Project. This report outlines the need for expanded design services and seeks council's approval of the additional costs associated with those changes in compliance with the approved 2025 capital budget number. The Mount Carmel Reservoir is a critical part of our water system. It provides water to approximately 50% of the McGillivray ward, 100% of the water to Park Hill, and then through Park Hill, 100% of the water to West Williams. And despite its importance, the reservoir has seen minimal upgrades since construction. Originally approved in 2023 with a grant-funded design budget of $300,000, the project was in Dillon Consulting Limited was retained to design a bypass chamber that allowed emergency rerouting from the Lake Huron primary water supply system. And the goal was to enhance system reliability and flexibility. So the scope change is being brought forward this evening because during the phase one of what was site investigations as part of the design assignment, significant deficiencies were identified, which noted that we needed to stop the project and then regroup in terms of a scope change. There was major mechanical, electrical, and process systems that were in very poor condition, and the reservoir, storage capacity was found to be very inadequate to meet current and projected demands. So at that time, we decided that a more comprehensive design was necessary to future-proof the reservoir, and the design was put on hold. The project was then carried forward through the 2025 capital budget, assuming a larger scope change, with key components that included a new bypass chamber for future maintenance flexibility, full SCADA system implementation for real-time monitoring and control, replacement and upgrades of all the mechanical, electrical, and process systems, expansion of the storage facility, and then through that design, the finalized design and tender-ready package that would allow us to tender and then reconstruct that entire reservoir. The timeline and budgets associated with the project and the scope change are that once it would be approved, design would be scheduled to be completed by September of 2025, which would give us ample time to carry it in the 26 budget. And assuming it was approved, construct starting in 2026. The total cost of the scope change, as seen in the report, is $207,000, $423.02. So $207,423.02, excluding HST. The scope change included a credit of $61,776.98, which was money that was not spent as part of phase one because it was put on hold. And that allowed Dillon to continue ensuring cost efficiency and ensure that we didn't avoid duplication of spending that money on phase one, just to have to duplicate it in phase two. So the recommendations put in front of council this evening for this report are that council receives report DIO 26 of 2025 regarding the Mount Carmel Reservoir upgrades scope change number 1 for information, and that council approves the appended change of scope number 1 with Dillon Consulting Limited at a cost of 207,423.02 excluding HST. And I'll just note that the capital number that was carried in budget was 300,000. So the cost at 207 is well under what we carried in capital and budgeted. I'm happy to answer any questions anyone might have.
All right, thank you, Sam. Questions from council? Councilor Keough first.
Thank you, Mayor Rob. Sam, I don't have any problem. You know, I'd like to see that the number did come in under our projected budget. The only question I have is the enhanced storage facility that's going to be needed. Is it going to fit inside that fence line? I've drove by there numerous times and I'm thinking it's going to be shoehorned in there pretty tight.
Through your worship to the councillor, yes, everything that we have planned as part of this project will fit within the existing footprint of the site that we have for the reservoir. So yes, it will all fit.
Thank you.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Hodgins.
Thank you, Mayor Rob. And my question's directed to Sam as well. Will it be Dillon who will be sizing that? He says we're expand our reservoir. Will it be Dillon sitting down and saying, this is how much capacity you will need for future needs? And, you know, will we have, any say or, to look at our future growth going on in here? That's what I'm getting at.
Through your worship to the councillor, yes, Dillon will certainly be doing that as part of the design, but that will be in tandem with us. So we will have a seat at the table and make sure that what they're doing takes into consideration that future need.
Okay. Other questions? Councilor Canellison.
Thank you, Mayor Rob. Sam, my question for you is that in reading the report, it's pretty obvious that the majority of our municipality relies on that particular location. Is there any plans or suggestions of altering that so that we're not reliant on one particular service and part of it?
Through your worship to the councillor, at this time, based on the ultimate recommendations that have been provided by Dillon as part of our water modeling, that's not something that they've suggested. Their ultimate recommendation is certainly that we can reconstruct the reservoir as proposed and then look at something elsewhere in the area of Park Hill, not anything to do with bypassing the reservoir or anything of that nature. So not at this time, no.
When you say Park Hill, are you specifically like the community itself? What like West Williams and that comes through Park Hill as well?
Through your worship, councillor, yes, that's correct.
Just Park Hill or Park Hill and West Williams?
Through your worship to the councillor, it would be Park Hill and West Williams.
Okay.
It all is one system, yes.
Okay. Other questions? Seeing no other questions, we have a recommendation in front of us. Moved by Councilor Daigle, seconded by Councilor Irwin. All in favor? Carried. The next one is yours as well, Sam, and that is Park Hill Wastewater Treatment Plant.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To the mayor and members of council, before you this evening is report DIO 27 of 2025 that provides a comprehensive update on the Park Hill Wastewater Treatment Plant project. This report focuses on identifying a more cost-effective alternative to the originally proposed mechanical plant and together determine the best path forward regarding the project. A bit of background on the project. The current lagoon system has been in service since around 1978. And as everyone is aware, it's nearing capacity. In 2019, an EA was completed recommending that a new mechanical extended aeration plant be constructed. Design then subsequently progressed to 90% and was completed by 2021 with all regulatory approvals and an ECA granted in 2023. However, the escalating cost of the project that ranged originally from $25 to $32 million rendered everything unaffordable at that time. So at that time, council directed staff to investigate more affordable options. So AECOM was then procured, and through 2024, they completed and compared a design optimization that looked at new technologies and more cost-effective solutions. You'll note in the report and then the subsequent memorandum that AECOM prepared that the alternative that they noted as the key one that be moved forward is what they're calling a BioCord lagoon retrofit solution, which retrofits the existing lagoon in situ, and it's a biological treatment system that utilizes the existing lagoon. So the savings that this alternative that they're putting forward is estimated to cost around 23.6 million, which is roughly an $18.3 million reduction from the original design of a mechanical aeration plant. You'll note again in the report and the subsequent appended memorandum that they did include, or they did look at some other options. They were all far more expensive than that. So that they ultimately recommended that the biocord was the most cost-effective solution, pardon me. You'll note again in my report and the subsequent memorandum that they suggested that the success of the lagoon retrofit entirely hinges on MECP's flexibility, because it does require that MECP work with us on possible relaxation limits of our phosphorus. And again, it would be in consultation through MECP that they would have to look at supporting some of the innovative technologies and treatments that are being proposed in this. The urgency that you'll note in my report is that the EA has an expiration date of 2029 and the ECA has an expiration date of 2028. So without action on either of these two things, extensions would be required that would need us to reopen the EA and reopen the ECA if what the EA and the ECA has included is something that we wanted to move forward with. Again, you'll note in my report that RVA Anderson has obviously been desludging the lagoons, and through a recent delegation to council and information that they've brought forward, they've suggested that there are some interim things that we can do to likely extend how long we can keep these lagoons going the way they are, and buy us some more time to figure out what we can do with the wastewater treatment plant and subsequently come up with the funding to pay for it. In the capital budget, we carried a budget number of $85,000 to hire RVA Anderson to look at that, to have those conversations with MECP to see what their appetite is to permit some of these things. And then that would subsequently dictate what they might or might not let us do, and go from there. So again, you'll note in my report that there is no immediate financial impact from this report. However, we require direction from council on a number of things. As staff, we would like to begin consultation with MECP, both regarding the biocord option that is in the report from AECOM and any interim solutions that RVA Anderson has, both as the stopgap and the long-term solution. We would like to talk to MECP about seeing if there is a way that we can do phased implementation of any kind. As staff, we would like to seek council support on discussing with developers if there's any possibilities of contributions or funding things that we can do to come up and secure the funding for the long-term funding that we need to build the solution that's presented here. And as staff, again, we're looking for council support on, again, moving forward with RVA with the capital budget number carried to explore these services and have discussions with MECP. So the recommendations in front of council this evening for this report are that council receives report DIO 27 of 2025 regarding the Park Hill wastewater treatment plant project update for information, and that council supports continuation of efforts related to the biocord lagoon retrofit alternative as outlined in the AECOM report for the purposes of discussion with MECP regarding potential adjustments to effluent limits and consideration of a phased approach, and regarding potential development partnerships and external funding opportunities, and that staff be authorized to proceed with RVA to further evaluate interim solutions. That includes both the Victoria Street pumping station and the lagoons. I'm happy to answer any questions if anyone.
Thank you. Questions, Councillor Irwin.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you. It seems that one of the key decision points here regards the time running out on our environmental assessment. Now, just to remind council, how long does it take to conduct a new environmental assessment and how much would that cost?
Through your worship to the councillor, it's certainly subjective to the project and how much public opposition you may or may not receive, but an EA can be completed within a year to year and a half, depending on the complexity. As far as costs go, it's hard to say. If we had to start the project from scratch, you're probably looking at a couple $100,000. It might be less, but because we're working with an existing EA that we would just have to reopen, but it's certainly not cheap.
A follow-up?
And a follow-up on the EA issue, Your Worship. So the EA expires in two phases in 28 and 29. How much work would we have to have in hand to satisfy the EA? Would we just have to have a signed agreement? Would we have to have a contract in place? Would we have to have shovels in the ground? Where would we need to be to satisfy that?
Through your worship to the councillor, most EAs work that you theoretically have to be doing something, or you have to have done something that the EA recommends. So based on what the EA recommends, we would have to proceed with something to do with the project for it to stand.
Can you please define something? I mean, what is something?
Through your worship, the counselor, we would likely have to do some sort of construction because there's no property involved or anything of that nature.
Okay, Counselor Canellison?
Thank you. Sam, what are the or just, I'll wait. Are you ready? What are the alternatives if we don't go ahead with this? What alternatives do we have?
Through your worship to the counselor, if we do not proceed with anything to do with the wastewater treatment plant as it's currently tabled and let the ECA expire and let the EA expire, we can certainly see what percolates out of the conversations with MECP. Where this will become problematic is if MECP has no appetite to support anything or deviate from standards, then we're likely back to exactly where we are now, where we will have a period of time where theoretically we can probably do something through RVA that extends capacity, but we'll come to a point again where we'll be back to requiring some sort of wastewater treatment plant again.
Just to expand on Councilor Irwin's questions around the timelines of beginning construction, how will we, where's the funding going to come from? How are we going to fund this?
Through your worship to the counselor, at this point, that is something that's not been determined, so we would certainly have to figure that out. But it would have to be through grant and or partnership with developers at this point, and that's where we would start.
You indicated that developers had no appetite for that at this time.
Through your worship to the counselor, it was not something that I was involved in, but I understand the last discussions that were had with them, that is correct. They did not have the appetite for it. So it's something we could reopen and maybe that's different, but I'm not sure.
Okay, thank you.
Counselor Keel?
Thank you, Mayor Rob. Sam, to what extent of construction will we have to perform to keep everyone satisfied? Something as simple as putting in a laneway, would that keep them at bay till we get our stuff organized? Or does there have to be a proper building or an outbuilding or something like that? Something minor until we get our ducks lined up.
Through your worship to the counselor, I'd certainly have to talk to an EA expert, but I'd suggest that we'd have to do hard construction for it to be deemed applicable.
But what you're looking for here tonight is the money for EVA to outsource some more, all the options we can find.
Through your worship to the counselor, that's correct. I'm looking for support to both hire RVA to talk to the MECP to see what their appetite is on deviations, as well as explore alternative interim solutions. Again, whatever we're doing here is just an interim solution. We're going to still need to pursue the long-term solution. So that's part one of it. Part two is deciding what we're going to do long-term with this. And if we're going to continue following through with what's been put forward from ACOM, or just table it for now and see what RVA comes up with and what MECP says.
Thank you. Counselor Irwin?
Thank you, Your Worship. On that final point, if we proceed with this exploratory project this evening, would we have then recommendations and budget numbers for our 2026 budget?
Through your worship to the counselor, my thoughts is that certainly depending on when we have the conversations with MECP and what they say, I'll report back to the council with that. And if they are in support of things and RVA can carry forward with something, then that would certainly be something that we would table as part of the next budget conversations. Yes.
Okay. Any other questions for this? Seeing no other questions, we have a recommendation. It's a long one. Sam has read that out to us. It's in front of everybody. In favor, Counselor Irwin. Seconded by Counselor Keel. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Our next report is from Carolyn.
Thank you, Worship. Before you tonight, we have a report with regards to the position that has recently been vacated by the retirement of a member of staff. It is the Executive Assistant HR Coordinator position. As council is aware, that position was recently vacated by the announcement of her retirement. And it gives us an opportunity to look at the position of what is needed for the future of this organization and what areas we're lacking, what areas we need to add to. I'll just bring it to light that in talking with the mayor, and I don't think he'd have a problem with me saying this, and for myself, our usage of an executive assistant has been fairly limited. In fact, we both feel that that is probably not an area where we need to provide complement at this time. But one area that we definitely need assistance within the organization is health and safety. And the other area I would suggest is within the human resources area, an individual who is fully fulfilling all the requirements for meeting all the requirements under CHIRP, for instance, so that they are familiar with all of the practices and legislation with regard to human resources. So tying those two things together seemed an appropriate thing to do. I've certainly myself and other organizations have seen that done and done very successfully. But by adding the two things together, we are looking for a person with a bit more in the way of background and requirements to fulfill the role. So in looking at other organizations that have this similar role, I did do a comparison of job descriptions, and before you, I have provided you what I would suggest would be a competitive yet not over the top rating for the role under a manager of human resources and health and safety. It would not be a department senior level position. It would be reporting to the CAO, but at the middle management end, very similar to the executive assistant. Although for some reason at one point that was put into senior management team, but I wouldn't see this position doing that. It would be remain at the middle management level. The position for us as far as costing going into the remainder of this year, we wouldn't see an increase in cost as the beginning wage for this position. A person coming into it would be at the lower end. Obviously, we've had a long-term employee leaving, so it doesn't take much stretch to suggest that they were leaving at the higher end of that wage scale. So they're very similar. And so the change would cause no increase to us budgetarily for the 2025 year and very limited for the next couple of years. So it is my recommendation that we move forward with this position, and the position of the Executive Assistant Human Resources Coordinator would be removed from our organizational chart, as it was no longer required, and it would no longer be required on the senior management team. And we would move forward only with the manager of human resources and health and safety to lead those two important areas within the municipality. And if you have any questions, we're happy to answer them.
Sorry, Councillor Daigle.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. Where's the health and safety? Who's in charge of it right now?
That is our problem through the mayor. We don't have anyone leading it. There was some suggestion in the past of various different positions leading that, but we don't have it. And it's a tough one to attach to a position because it often gets missed for their other portions of their position. That's why I believe it fits in, and I have experienced myself where it fits in very well with human resources, because a lot of the training that's needed for human resources often falls very nicely with training required for health and safety. A lot of the reviews that have to take place often happen in both areas. So they tag together, I feel, quite nicely. And a lot of human resources individuals that I'm familiar with often have the credentials on both sides. So I think it can be put together quite nicely to fulfill the requirements.
Just further to that, in the past, the person who was left did do some of that. Also, some of the department heads have taken that on their own departments, I think. Correct? It was been sort of a.
Through the mayor, yes. When I say no one was tagged with that, it didn't fall under someone's job description specifically to be fully responsible, but that's not saying that each department had, and certainly our executive assistant in the past didn't have a role in that, but now we'd have someone fully responsible for it. And all the department heads would obviously function under some leadership there to continue with the requirements, obligations under that.
Okay, follow up or Okay, other questions? Counselor Canellison?
Thank you, Mayor Rupp. My recollection was that in the past, the fire chief was responsible 50% of his role was to be for health and safety. Apparently, that is no longer the case. Having said that, when we have this human resources manager on board, will that then remove the need to bring in a consultant to review salary lines?
A lot of that should be, a lot of the things that we have to go outside for hopefully can be taken care of inside. For instance, a lot of the advice we have to get from outside sources should be very much limited, if not required any longer. I know myself right now, I turn to county HR on a regular basis because of their expertise. I'm hopeful that this person that we recruit would have that expertise in-house and reduce our need also for some legal advice on some of those things as well. As far as going outside for things like salary comparisons of things of that nature, some of that could also be done in-house, but it'll depend on the ability of the person and the resources they have, as well as their expertise. But I'm hopeful a lot of that can be done in-house.
Thank you.
Other questions? Counselor Daigle, a follow-up question?
Just this person, we're not looking at bringing them on until the past position has been finished their time that they're being paid for.
The intent is to start the recruitment process with bringing them on when that is complete.
Other questions on this? No other questions from council? What is your wish? We have a recommendation here. Counselor Irwin?
I'll move the recommendation, your worship.
Okay, thank you. You're moving the recommendation. Deputy Mayor Hodgins is seconding it. In favor? Carried. Thank you. All right, committee reports, Lake Huron Primary.
June 5th, I think, is the next meeting.
Okay, thank you. ABCA? Nothing? Was there a Leafs game on?
The meeting is next week, Mayor Rupp.
Thank you. Blue Water Recycling?
Just the information that was provided from the annual report.
Okay. Any questions on the report from anyone? Seeing none. EDAC?
We had our meeting last week, your worship. It was very successful. There'll be some recommendations coming forward to council from it.
Okay, thank you. Local School Advisory?
We did a presentation last week, your worship, on Tuesday, April 29th at the county building, in terms of two issues for the local school advisory committee. One was growth in our community, and the second was out of district busing in regards to our high school. Very successful, I would say. The presentation led to a subsequent meeting now confirmed for June 11th with the Director of Education from Thames Valley District School Board to talk about out of district busing.
Excellent. Any questions for Councilor Irwin? Seeing none. Recreation Committee?
I think we're on hold. I'm gonna have to speak with Kent to see what we can get lined up because Brandon's away.
Okay. Okay. Policy Committee review, and we have a policy here, Councilor Daigle.
Thank you. The video monitoring policy is being brought back. I think it's basically just to rename some of our staff members from how we've changed their names so that they're accurate in there. And I think it added one or two people who could view it.
Any questions on that? That is a recommended motion. Are you making that a motion, Councilor Daigle? Seconded by Councilor Nerda. All in favor of that? Carried. Fire Committee,
Next meeting is May 20th.
May 20th. Budget Committee, nothing there. Community Development Fund, nothing there. Aqua Client Advisory Board, no. And last but not least, the Middlesex County OPP Board.
I believe there'll be another meeting by the end of May.
The end of May. All right, thank you. Correspondence. We have Township of Howick, utility pole installation, high-speed internet project, receive and file. Richmond Hill, restricting exotic animal, receive and file. Township of Champlain, surveillance of heavy truck vehicles, receive and file. All right, the strong mayor opposition, you've seen the note on there because we've already sent a letter that we won't be putting any more on there. Other and urgent business. Councilor Nelson.
Thank you, Mayor Rob. I'm going to refer to Sam, if he could perhaps give an update on an issue that came up when I had a meeting at the MPP's office last week with the gas line on Center Road.
Through your worship to the counselor, I did receive the request. I reached out to the MPP's office. I've suggested that we have a meeting with them, all parties involved, including NFTC, yourself, staff, and Enbridge, of course. I've not heard back, so I will certainly follow up with them in a week or two if I do not hear anything. But the intent is that through the as-built I've received from NFTC and with NFTC's there, pardon me, and Enbridge, we can certainly come up with a solution.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you, just some congratulations to Public Works staff who this week put up the Village Association and Canada flag banners in Elsa Craig. It's been noted by members of the community already, and thanks staff for doing that.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor Hodgins.
Question to Sam. Thank you, Mayor. Has or when does the gravel start on the roads?
Through your worship to the counselor, calcium started Monday and gravel started today.
Okay. Any other business? Seeing none, communication including county council. Anything on that? We had the municipal day yesterday and I think county sending out a report on that meeting. Reading of the bylaws.
Thank you. And that bylaws 38 of 2025 and 43 of 2025 be read a first and second time.
Moved by Councillor Daigle, Councillor Nerda, all in favor? Carried.
And that bylaws 35 of 2025, 38 of 2025, and 43 of 2025 be read a third and final time.
And that's moved by Councillor Daigle, Deputy Mayor Hodgins, all in favor? Carried. I'm looking for a motion to go into closed session. And the reason for the closed session is under the Municipal Act 239, 2B, D, E, and F. Minutes, solicitor client privilege, building permit enforcement, personal matters of identifiable individual and labor relations. Also personal matters of an identifiable individual, facility lease negotiations. Looking for a mover. Councillor Daigle, Councillor Nerda, all in favor? Carried. Thank you.